Captain Jake Morrison watched the stars through the bridge window of the New Horizon. His ship was 3 days away from Earth after a routine mission to the outer colonies. Everything seemed normal until his communications officer, Lieutenant Karen Bell, turned around with worry on her face. "Captain, I'm picking up massive energy readings near Earth. Something big is happening." Jake moved to her station and looked at the screen. The readings were unlike anything he had ever seen. "How big are we talking?" "Sir, these signatures are off the charts. Whatever is generating them is enormous." On Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the command center of Orbital Defense Station Alpha. She had been watching the same readings for the past hour. Her team worked frantically at their stations, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. "Admiral," called out her aide, Commander Rick Torres, "we have visual contact." The main screen filled with an image that made everyone in the room go silent. Massive crystalline ships, each one larger than a city, hung in space above Earth. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, made of what looked like living crystal that pulsed with inner light. "How many?" Lisa asked. 12 ships, Admiral, all positioned over major population centers." Lisa felt her stomach drop. "Open all communication channels, all frequencies. Let them know we want to talk." For 30 minutes, they tried everything. Radio signals, laser communications, even primitive light patterns. The alien ships remained silent, hanging in space like crystal mountains. Then, without warning, they opened fire. The first beam hit New York City. The plasma was so hot it turned concrete and steel into glass in seconds. The beam carved through Manhattan like a knife through butter, leaving nothing but a smoking crater where millions of people had lived just moments before. Lisa watched in horror as the screens showed similar destruction across the globe. London vanished in a flash of blue light. Tokyo became a glass lake. Moscow, Berlin, Sydney, all gone in the first wave of attacks. "Return fire," Lisa shouted. "All weapons, maximum power." The orbital defense platforms unleashed everything they had. Nuclear missiles, plasma cannons, railgun projectiles. All of it struck the alien ships and did absolutely nothing. The crystal halls absorbed the attacks like they were raindrops. On the ground, Colonel Danny Hayes was leading the evacuation of Chicago when the sky turned blue above him. He grabbed his radio and shouted into it as he ran. "All units, fall back. Get everyone to the underground shelters now." The plasma beam struck the city center just as Danny reached the subway entrance. The heat wave knocked him down the stairs as the world above turned to hell. When he looked back up, half of Chicago was gone. Dr. Amanda Stone was in her laboratory at MIT when the attacks began. As a xenobiologist, she had always wondered what aliens might be like. Now she wished she had never found out. Her assistant, Dr. Kevin Wright, burst into the lab. "Amanda, we need to go. They're evacuating the entire area." "Wait," Amanda said, staring at the footage on her computer screen. "Look at their ships. The way the crystal formations pulse, it's almost like they're alive. We can figure that out later. Right now, we need to survive." They grabbed what research materials they could carry and ran for the emergency shuttles. As their shuttle lifted off, Amanda watched the alien ship above Boston. She noticed something important. The crystal structure seemed to vibrate in a specific pattern. Back in space, Jake Morrison's ship was racing toward Earth at maximum speed. His crew watched in shock as reports came in from across the solar system. The aliens had not just attacked Earth. They had hit every human settlement in the galaxy. "Captain," said his navigator, "Lieutenant Sue Davis, we're receiving a distress call from the Alpha Centauri colonies." Jake listened to the message. It was from Commander Nicole Price, one of the best tactical officers in the fleet. Her voice was filled with static and fear. "This is Commander Price of the colony ship Freedom. The aliens hit us 3 hours ago. Most of our fleet is gone. They came out of nowhere with weapons we've never seen before. We're trying to evacuate civilians, but they're hunting us down one by one." The message cut to static. Jake stared at the communication panel, feeling helpless. Earth was under attack, and so was every other human world. "Sir," Karen said quietly, "we're getting reports from all the outer colonies. Same story everywhere. They hit fast and hard, then started hunting survivors." Jake made a decision that would haunt him for months. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. "But Captain, the colonies need help too. Earth is where we make our stand. If Earth falls, humanity falls." As the New Horizon raced toward home, Jake watched the long-range scanners. The alien fleet was massive, with hundreds of crystal ships spreading across human space like a plague. Whoever these aliens were, they had not come to talk. They had come to wipe humanity from the galaxy. On Earth, the attacks continued for 6 more hours. By the time the alien ship stopped firing, 27 major cities had been destroyed. Over 200 million people were dead, and the survivors were scattered and terrified. Admiral Lisa Carter found herself in an underground bunker in Colorado, one of the few military commanders still alive. The crystal ships now hung silently over Earth like waiting vultures. Colonel Danny Hayes had managed to save several thousand people from Chicago, but he knew millions more were dead or dying in the ruins above. Dr. Amanda Stone sat in a refugee shelter, sketching the alien ship designs from memory and trying to understand what they were dealing with. As night fell on the burning Earth, humanity faced a terrible truth. They were not alone in the universe, and they had just met something that wanted them dead. The aliens had fired the first shot, burning humanity's greatest cities to ash. But Jake Morrison, racing through space toward his dying homeworld, made a promise that would echo through the war to come. Humanity would not go quietly into the dark. They would fight, they would learn, and somehow they would survive. The war for humanity's future had begun, and it would not end until one side fired the last shot. 3 months had passed since the crystal ships first appeared above Earth. General Paul Brooks sat in a bunker buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, staring at reports that grew worse each day. The alien fleet had grown to over 300 ships, and they were systematically destroying every human settlement they could find. "General," said his communications officer, Sergeant Lucy Park, "we're getting another distress call from the Kepler colonies." Paul listened to the crackling transmission. Commander Nicole Price's voice came through the static, tired but determined. "This is Price aboard the refugee ship Hope. We've been running for 2 weeks now. Started with 47 ships carrying civilians from Kepler 442. Now we're down to 12. The hunters are relentless." Paul grabbed the microphone. "Nicole, this is Brooks. What's your situation?" "Bad and getting worse, General. These alien hunter ships are fast and smart. They pick off our slowest vessels one by one. I've managed to keep most of the civilians alive by using hit-and-run tactics, but we're running out of fuel and options." Paul knew Nicole was one of the best tactical minds in the fleet. If she was struggling, things were desperate everywhere. "Can you make it to the Jupiter mining stations?" "Negative. The aliens took Jupiter last week. We're heading for the asteroid belt. Maybe we can hide there." The transmission ended, leaving Paul alone with his thoughts. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out every day. Humanity was losing badly. In her makeshift laboratory in the Australian outback, Dr. Amanda Stone worked by lamplight, studying fragments of alien technology. Her assistant Kevin had been killed in a bombing run 2 weeks ago, leaving her alone with her research. The crystal fragments hummed softly on her workbench. She had discovered something important. The alien ships were not just machines. They were somehow alive, made of a silicon-based material that could think and adapt. "Fascinating," she whispered, taking notes. "The crystal matrix shows clear signs of biological processes. These ships can heal themselves and communicate with each other." Her research was interrupted by the sound of footsteps. Engineer Kyle Johnson appeared at the entrance to her hidden lab, carrying a bag of salvaged equipment. "Dr. Stone, I've got the parts you asked for. Any luck with the alien tech?" Amanda showed him her latest discovery. "Look at this frequency pattern. When I expose the crystal to specific sound waves, it vibrates violently. I think we might have found their weakness." Kyle examined the data. "You mean we could make weapons that use sound to hurt them?" "Not just hurt them. I think the right frequency could shatter their ships completely. But we'd need massive amounts of power to generate the sound waves." Kyle looked at the list of required materials and whistled. "Amanda, this would take the output of a small power plant. We don't have those anymore." Amanda's face fell. "Then we keep working. There has to be another way." Far from Earth, Captain Jake Morrison led a small fleet of survivors through the asteroid belt. His ship, the New Horizon, had become the flagship for 37 vessels carrying the last free humans in the solar system. Lieutenant Sam Collins, one of his best pilots, approached Morrison on the bridge. "Captain, I've got an idea about those hunter ships." Jake looked up from his tactical display. "I'm listening. They're fast, but they're not as maneuverable as our fighters in tight spaces. If we could lure them into the asteroid field, we might be able to even the odds." Jake considered this. It's risky. One mistake and we lose everything. Sir, doing nothing is riskier. We've been running for 3 months. Eventually, we'll run out of places to hide. Jake made his decision. Set up the ambush. Pick your best pilots. 2 days later, Sam led a squadron of 12 fighters into the asteroid field. They had modified their ships with salvaged alien weapons, making them slightly more effective against the crystal hulls. The hunter ships took the bait, following the human fighters into the dense asteroid field. Sam's plan worked perfectly. The massive alien ships struggled to maneuver between the rocks while the smaller human fighters darted between them like angry wasps. Target their weapon ports, Sam called over the radio. That's where their crystal is thinnest. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, Sam's squadron had destroyed 3 hunter ships and damaged 2 more. They lost 4 fighters, but it was the first real victory humanity had scored. Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter emerged from hiding in the ruins of Washington, D.C. She had been presumed dead after the fall of Mars Colony, but she had actually been organizing resistance cells across the planet. She met with Colonel Danny Hayes in the burned-out remains of the Pentagon. Danny had been leading survivors in the Chicago area, using abandoned subway tunnels as bases. Lisa, it's good to see you alive, Danny said. We heard Mars was completely destroyed. It was, Lisa replied grimly, but not before I got the colony's computer core. Danny, what I found changes everything. She showed him the data on a portable screen. The aliens aren't just randomly attacking us. They're following a specific pattern. They always hit the biggest population centers first, then move to industrial sites, then start hunting survivors. Danny studied the information. They've done this before. Not just before, Danny, they've done this hundreds of times. The computer core had fragments of their communications. These aliens have destroyed entire civilizations using the exact same tactics. Danny felt sick. How many? At least 300 species that we know of. They call themselves the Zephyrian Dominion, and they've been wiping out intelligent life for thousands of years. As they talked, neither of them noticed the small alien probe watching them from the shadows. The Zephyrians had been listening to human communications, learning their language and tactics. In the outer system, Commander Nicole Price finally reached the asteroid belt with her remaining 8 ships. She was exhausted, having slept only a few hours in the past week. Her convoy carried 12,000 civilian survivors, including many children. Commander, called her navigation officer, we're detecting human ships ahead. It looks like Captain Morrison's fleet. Nicole felt relief for the first time in months. Morrison was known throughout the fleet as someone who could work miracles. Maybe together they could figure out how to fight back. When the 2 fleets met, the reunion was bittersweet. They now had the largest gathering of free humans since the war began, but their situation was still desperate. Morrison called a meeting of all the ship captains. We can't keep running forever. The aliens are hunting us down methodically. We need to start fighting back, Nicole agreed. My people have gathered intelligence on their tactics. They're not invincible. Lieutenant Collins proved that. Sam stepped forward. With respect, sirs, we destroyed 3 hunter ships and it barely slowed them down. We need something bigger. Morrison nodded. I've been thinking about that. There's something Dr. Stone discovered about sound frequencies. If we could get that information and the right equipment. The meeting was interrupted by an alarm. The sensor operator announced grimly, Alien hunter fleet approaching. 12 ships moving fast. As the fleet prepared to run once again, Morrison made a promise to himself and his people. Humanity would not spend the rest of their existence hiding in the dark corners of space. They would find a way to fight back, and they would make the aliens pay for every human life they had taken. The scattered survivors of humanity prepared to flee once more, but the seeds of resistance were already growing. Soon they would learn to fight fire with fire. 6 months after the first attack, Earth looked like a dying world. The crystal ships hung in the sky like silent threats while Zephyrian patrols searched the ruins for human survivors. But deep underground, humanity refused to give up. Dr. Amanda Stone had moved her laboratory 3 times to avoid alien patrols. Now she worked in an abandoned mine shaft in Australia. Surrounded by makeshift equipment and crystal fragments, Kyle Johnson sat beside her, holding a device they had built together. Try it again, Amanda said, her voice hoarse from months of little sleep. Kyle activated the frequency generator. The alien crystal on the table began to vibrate, then started to crack. After 30 seconds, it shattered completely. It works, Kyle whispered. It actually works. Amanda smiled for the first time in months. We can hurt them. The question is how to make it big enough to damage their ships. Above ground, the resistance had grown larger than the aliens expected. Maria Santos, a former mining engineer, led the largest group in South America. She had turned abandoned copper mines into weapon factories, using the old equipment to build frequency devices based on Amanda's research. How many do we have ready? She asked her lieutenant, Tony Garcia. 47 devices, but they're still too small to damage the big ships. We can hurt the ground patrols, though. Maria looked at the map of known alien positions. Then that's where we start. We hit their patrols, take their equipment, and learn everything we can. The first test came 2 days later. A Zephyrian patrol of 6 crystal soldiers was searching the ruins of Buenos Aires when Maria's team surrounded them. The frequency weapons made high-pitched sounds that caused the crystal beings to writhe in pain. It's working, Tony shouted over the noise. They're falling apart. The crystal soldiers shattered like glass, leaving behind fragments that Maria's team quickly collected. For the first time since the war began, humans had won a ground battle. Far from Earth, Captain Jake Morrison was having problems of his own. His fleet had grown to over 60 ships as more survivors found them, but food and fuel were running dangerously low. Worse, the aliens seemed to be getting smarter about hunting them. Lieutenant Sam Collins brought him bad news. Captain, we lost the Pioneer last night. The hunter ships are using new tactics. They're not just chasing us anymore, they're predicting where we'll go. Morrison studied the tactical reports. Sam was right. The aliens were learning human behavior patterns. We need to change our approach. Instead of running from them, we start hunting them. Sir? Small teams, hit-and-run attacks. We've learned enough about their technology to hurt them. Time to put that knowledge to use. Morrison's plan was dangerous but necessary. Over the next month, his pilots began launching surprise attacks on isolated alien ships. They lost many good people, but they also captured valuable intelligence. The breakthrough came when Sam's team captured an intact alien communication device. When Morrison activated it, he heard something that changed everything. The device was receiving transmissions from across the galaxy, and they weren't all in the Zephyrian language. There were dozens of different languages, all reporting the same thing: successful conquest operations. My God, Morrison whispered. How many species are they fighting? His communications officer, Karen Bell, had been working to decode the messages. Captain, based on what I'm hearing, they're attacking at least 15 different star systems right now. And that's just what we can detect. Morrison felt sick. Humanity wasn't the Zephyrians' only target. They were waging war against the entire galaxy. But then Karen found something else in the transmissions. Sir, there's something odd here. Some of these messages sound like distress calls. I think some of the alien operations are failing. This gave Morrison hope. The Zephyrians weren't invincible. Other species were fighting back too. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter had been working with General Paul Brooks to coordinate resistance cells across the planet. They had established contact with Amanda's research team and Maria's weapon builders. Slowly, a plan was forming. The frequency weapons work against their ground forces, Lisa explained during a secret meeting in the Colorado bunker. But we need something much bigger to threaten their ships. Paul looked at the intelligence reports. According to our scouts, they're building something in orbit. Something massive. Colonel Danny Hayes had been leading reconnaissance missions in the ruins of major cities. His latest report was disturbing. The construction project is directly above what used to be New York. It's bigger than anything they've built before. Lisa studied the photographs Danny had taken. The alien construction looked like a massive crystal flower blooming in space, with energy patterns that hurt to look at. What do you think it is? Paul asked. Nothing good, Lisa replied. We need to find out what they're building and stop it. Meanwhile, Amanda had made another discovery in her underground laboratory. While studying the captured communication device, she realized something important about how the aliens talk to each other. Kyle, look at this, she said excitedly. Their communication network isn't just for talking. It's connected to every ship, every soldier, every piece of equipment they have. Kyle studied her data. You mean it's like one giant computer network? Exactly. And if our frequency weapons can disrupt their crystal technology, maybe we can use the same frequency to disrupt their communications. The implications were staggering. If they could break the aliens' ability to coordinate, Their massive fleets would become confused and vulnerable. But Amanda's discovery came with a warning. While working on the communication device, she accidentally activated a hidden program. Suddenly, alien text began scrolling across the screen and a translated message appeared. Planetary sterilization device completion. 72%. Estimated time to activation, 47 Earth days. Amanda felt her blood turn cold. The aliens weren't just building a weapon in orbit. They were building something designed to kill every living thing on Earth. She immediately contacted the Resistance leadership through their secret communication network. Within hours, every human on the planet knew the truth. They had less than 7 weeks to stop the aliens from completing their doomsday weapon. The news changed everything. Resistance cells that had been hiding began emerging to help. People who had given up hope started fighting again. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, and civilians began working together with a single goal: destroy the alien weapon before it could destroy them. In his asteroid base, Morrison received the message and made a decision that would define the rest of the war. "We're going home," he announced to his fleet. "Earth needs us and it's time to stop running." Commander Nicole Price, who had become his second-in-command, nodded grimly. "It's a one-way trip, Captain. Even if we succeed, we probably won't survive the battle." Morrison looked at the stars toward Earth, where his species was making its last stand. "Then we'd better make it count." As the human fleet began its journey home, Resistance fighters across the galaxy prepared for the battle of their lives. The aliens had fired the first shot and burned humanity's cities. But humanity was about to show them what happened when you cornered a species with nothing left to lose. The underground war was about to become something much bigger. 1 year after first contact, humanity prepared for what everyone knew would be their final battle. In hidden factories beneath the Earth's surface, Dr. Amanda Stone watched as the last of her frequency weapons rolled off the production line. "How many do we have total?" asked Kyle Johnson, who had become her partner in both work and the desperate fight for survival. Amanda checked her list. 347 large-scale generators, plus over 2,000 portable units. "It's not enough to destroy their entire fleet, but if we coordinate properly, we might be able to take out that orbital weapon," Kyle finished. He looked tired. They all did. A year of living underground and fighting for scraps had worn everyone down. In the Colorado command bunker, Admiral Lisa Carter stood before a holographic display showing the alien construction above Earth. The crystal structure had grown massive, stretching across 50 miles of space. Energy readings suggested it could sterilize the entire planet's surface in a matter of hours. General Paul Brooks pointed to intelligence reports. "Our scouts confirmed the aliens are preparing for activation. They've been moving ships into defensive positions around the weapon." Colonel Danny Hayes entered the briefing room, still wearing gear from his latest reconnaissance mission. "I've got news from Morrison's fleet. They're 3 days out from Earth." Lisa felt a mixture of hope and dread. Morrison's return meant they finally had enough ships for their plan, but it also meant this was truly their last chance. "What's our total strength?" she asked. Danny consulted his reports. "Morrison's bringing 67 ships, mostly converted civilian vessels with jury-rigged weapons. We have the frequency generators positioned at 43 sites around the globe. Maria's Resistance fighters have trained over 10,000 volunteers to operate them. And Colin's infiltration team? Ready to go. 20 volunteers with enough stolen alien equipment to pass as Zephyrian technicians. It's a suicide mission, but they know that." Lisa nodded grimly. Their plan was desperate and complex, requiring perfect timing and enormous luck. The frequency generators would target the orbital weapon, while Morrison's fleet engaged the defensive ships. Meanwhile, Sam Collins would lead his team inside the weapon to sabotage it from within. But Amanda had discovered something that made their plan even more dangerous and ambitious. "Admiral," Amanda said as she entered the briefing room, "I need to show you something about the alien communication network." She activated a captured alien device, and the room filled with the strange crystalline sounds of Zephyrian communication. "I've been studying their network for months. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier is connected through quantum communication channels." "What does that mean for us?" Lisa asked. "It means if we can generate the right frequency pulse at the right moment, we can send a destructive signal through their entire network, not just here at Earth, but everywhere their ships are operating." The room went silent as everyone understood the implications. "You're talking about hitting their entire empire at once." Paul said slowly. Exactly. But it has to be perfectly coordinated. We get one shot at this. Far above them in the asteroid belt, Captain Jake Morrison briefed his ship captains for the last time. The meeting took place aboard the New Horizon, with representatives from every vessel in their makeshift fleet. Commander Nicole Price had transformed from a refugee convoy leader into Morrison's chief tactical officer. She stood before a display showing the alien defensive formations around Earth. The enemy has 230 ships protecting the orbital weapon, she explained. We have 67. On paper, we don't stand a chance. The ship captains looked grim, but Morrison stepped forward. On paper, the aliens should have wiped us out a year ago, but we're still here. We've learned their weaknesses, and we've learned something they haven't: how to adapt. Lieutenant Sue Davis, Morrison's navigator, raised her hand. Captain, what about the evacuation ships? Are we really using them as decoys? Morrison nodded. Nicole's convoy operations proved that civilian ships can be more dangerous than they appear. We've hidden weapons on 40 of the evacuation vessels. When the aliens move to intercept what they think is a desperate escape attempt, they'll get a very unpleasant surprise. The plan was elegant in its deception. Commander Price would lead what appeared to be a massive civilian evacuation, drawing the alien fleet away from the orbital weapon. Once the Zephyrians committed to stopping the escape, Morrison's hidden warships would reveal themselves and attack. On Earth, Maria Santos made final preparations with her resistance fighters. The frequency generators were massive devices that required teams of operators, and they would only get one chance to use them before alien patrols found and destroyed them. Remember, she told her Lieutenant Tony Garcia, we wait for Carter's signal. All generators must fire simultaneously or the frequency cascade won't work. Tony checked his equipment one more time. Maria, what if this doesn't work? What if we can't generate enough power? Maria looked at the faces of her volunteers, miners, engineers, teachers, farmers, all united in their determination to save their world. Then we go down fighting. That's more than the aliens gave the other species they destroyed. The day of the attack dawned gray and cold. Across the planet, resistance fighters took their positions. In orbit, the alien weapon pulsed with increasing energy as the Zephyrians prepared for their final strike against humanity. Morrison's fleet approached Earth at maximum speed, broadcasting fake distress signals to make the aliens think they were desperate refugees. Price's evacuation convoy followed a different course, appearing to flee toward the outer system with thousands of civilian ships. The deception worked perfectly. The Zephyrian fleet split into two groups, one pursuing the evacuation convoy, the other moving to intercept Morrison's approaching ships. All ships. This is Morrison, the captain broadcast on an encrypted channel. The aliens have taken the bait. Begin Phase 2. Across the fleet, hidden weapon systems came online. Civilian transports revealed themselves as disguised warships. The surprise was total, for exactly 30 seconds. Then the real battle began. Morrison's ships struck the alien interceptors with everything they had. Modified nuclear weapons, captured plasma cannons, and Amanda's frequency weapons all fired simultaneously. The aliens, caught off guard, lost 15 ships in the opening salvo, but they adapted quickly. The crystal ships began coordinating their fire, and Morrison's inferior numbers started to tell. Within minutes, he had lost a quarter of his fleet. Admiral Carter, Morrison called over the radio. We can't hold them much longer. Whatever you're going to do it now. On Earth, Lisa Carter watched the battle through long-range sensors while waiting for the perfect moment. The orbital weapon was charging for its final activation sequence, but most of the defensive ships had moved away to fight Morrison's fleet. All frequency generators. This is Carter, she broadcast to the resistance cells. Begin synchronized firing in 3, 2, 1, fire. Across the planet, 300 frequency generators activated simultaneously. The combined sound wave rose into the atmosphere, targeting the massive crystal weapon hanging in space. Amanda Stone, monitoring from her underground laboratory, watched as the frequency pulse struck the alien device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire orbital weapon began to vibrate. Crystal formations started cracking. Energy discharges arced between the structures as the weapon tore itself apart. But Amanda's larger plan was just beginning. The frequency pulse didn't stop at the orbital weapon. It propagated through the quantum communication network. spreading to every Zephyrian ship and installation across the galaxy. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Zephyrian Dominion faced a technology that could threaten their crystalline biology on a galactic scale. The weapon above Earth exploded in a shower of crystal fragments, lighting up the sky like a second sun. The defensive fleet, suddenly cut off from their command network, began to retreat in confusion. Morrison's battered fleet pursued them, but the real victory was happening across the galaxy as the frequency pulse reached other star systems where the aliens were fighting. Humanity had struck back, and the universe would never be the same. The frequency pulse changed everything. Across the galaxy, Zephyrian ships suddenly found themselves cut off from their command network, their crystal hulls vibrating with destructive harmonics. The species that had conquered 300 civilizations faced their first real defeat in 1,000 years, but the battle for Earth was far from over. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the New Horizon as the orbital weapon exploded above the planet. Crystal fragments rained down like burning stars, but the alien fleet was already regrouping. The frequency pulse had hurt them badly, but they were still dangerous. "Damage report," Morrison called out. Lieutenant Karen Bell's voice was grim. "We're down to 31 ships, Captain. The aliens lost about half their fleet, but they're still outnumbering us 2-1. On the surface, Lieutenant Sam Collins led his infiltration team through the wreckage of the destroyed weapon. They had been inside when Amanda's frequency generators fired, barely escaping through an emergency shuttle as the massive structure tore itself apart. "Collins to all units," he radioed. "The primary target is destroyed, but we've got problems. The explosion scattered alien technology across 3 continents. If they recover those fragments, they could rebuild." Admiral Lisa Carter, coordinating from her bunker, understood the implications immediately. All resistance cells, priority mission, secure alien technology fragments. Do not let them fall back into enemy hands. Across the planet, Maria Santos and her fighters began a race against time. The destroyed weapon had scattered crystal technology across vast areas, and Zephyrian recovery teams were already deploying from their remaining ships. The battle became 100 smaller conflicts as human and alien forces fought for control of the technology fragments. Maria's team in South America captured a piece the size of a building that was still pulsing with energy. "What do we do with it?" asked Tony Garcia, staring at the massive crystal. Dr. Amanda Stone, who had emerged from her underground laboratory for the first time in months, studied the fragment with growing excitement. "We learned from it. This crystal contains their entire technical database, everything they know about warfare, about the species they've conquered. It's all here." But Amanda's discovery came with a terrifying revelation. As she accessed the crystal's data, she learned the true scope of the Zephyrian Empire. "Kyle," she called to her assistant, "you need to see this." The crystal database contained records of every species the Zephyrians had destroyed. 317 civilizations, each one extinct. But it also contained something else: the locations of their homeworlds and the surviving refugee populations. "My God," Kyle whispered. "There are others. Survivors hiding throughout the galaxy." Amanda immediately contacted Admiral Carter. "Lisa, the frequency pulse didn't just damage the Zephyrians here. It hit their entire empire. Species that have been hiding for centuries are reporting that their oppressors are weakened or gone." The news spread through the human resistance like wildfire. They weren't just fighting for Earth anymore. They were fighting for every enslaved species in the galaxy. In space, the battle continued. Commander Nicole Price had taken command of the evacuation fleet and turned it into a surprisingly effective fighting force. Her tactical genius was proving that converted civilian ships could match military vessels when used correctly. "All evacuation ships, form up on my position," she broadcast. "We're going to show these aliens what humans do when we're cornered." The final space battle lasted for 6 hours. Human ships, outnumbered and outgunned, fought with desperate creativity. They used asteroid fields as cover, deployed clouds of metallic debris to confuse alien sensors, and coordinated attacks with surface-based frequency weapons. Morrison's New Horizon led the final assault on the alien flagship, a massive crystal cathedral that served as the fleet's command ship. As they approached, a transmission came through on all frequencies. The voice was like grinding glass speaking in accented English. "Human vessels, this is Fleet Commander Zelthar of the Zephyrian Dominion. Your resistance has been Unexpected. Morrison took the microphone. This is Captain Morrison of the human fleet. If you want to surrender, we'll consider it. The alien commander made a sound that might have been laughter. Surrender? Small creatures, you have fought well. But you have only delayed your extinction. The Dominion spans 1,000 star systems. We offer you one chance. Submit to our rule as client species and some of your kind may survive. Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Karen Bell at communications, Sue Davis at navigation, Sam Collins coordinating with the fighter squadrons. All of them had lost everything to the Zephyrian invasion, but none of them looked ready to give up. Commander Zelthar, Morrison replied, you made a mistake when you attacked us. You thought we were weak because we were peaceful. You thought we would break because we hadn't faced genocide before. You were wrong on all counts. Explain. Morrison smiled grimly. You burned our cities thinking we were just another species to be conquered. But every species you destroyed before us fought alone. We're not alone anymore. Your own database tells us where every survivor in the galaxy is hiding. Your frequency pulse awakened them all. As if summoned by his words, new contacts appeared on the sensors. Ships of alien design but broadcasting human frequency codes. The survivors of the Zephyrian Empire's previous conquests had received Amanda's signal and were coming to help. The Altarian survivors brought their stealth technology. The Vegan refugees contributed their shield generators. Dozens of species that had hidden for centuries emerged to join the fight against their common enemy. Commander. Zelthar's voice carried a note of something humans had never heard from a Zephyrian before: fear. This is impossible. Those species are extinct. No, Morrison replied. They were just waiting for someone to fire the shot that would bring you down. You burned our cities, but we're going to burn your empire. The final battle was brief but decisive. The combined fleet of free species, coordinated by human tactical doctrine and equipped with frequency weapons, overwhelmed the remaining Zephyrian forces. The crystal ships that had seemed invincible a year ago shattered like glass under the coordinated assault. Fleet Commander Zelthar's flagship was the last to fall. As it broke apart, a final transmission reached the human fleet. You do not understand what you have done. Without the Dominion to maintain order, the galaxy will fall into chaos. Admiral Carter, who had joined the fleet aboard a commandeered alien ship, responded personally. Maybe, but chaos is better than extinction, and we'll be here to help rebuild what you destroyed. In the months that followed, humanity emerged as an unexpected leader in the galactic community. The frequency weapon technology became the foundation for a new alliance of free species. Captain Morrison found himself commanding not just human ships, but vessels from dozens of worlds. Dr. Amanda Stone established the Galactic Research Institute, dedicated to ensuring that no species would ever again face extinction at the hands of genocidal empires. Her first project was developing defenses against any future Zephyrian resurgence. The war officially ended when the last Zephyrian stronghold surrendered after a brief siege. The crystal beings, their empire shattered and their technology neutralized, agreed to live under the oversight of the Free Species Alliance. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of humanity's new flagship, watching as human and alien ships worked together to liberate another former Zephyrian colony. The species they found there had been enslaved for over 500 years and wept when they learned they were free. Admiral, Captain Morrison said, joining her at the observation window, we're receiving reports from the Outer Rim. 3 more species have declared independence and are requesting assistance. Carter nodded. Send them everything they need. Ships, weapons, medical supplies, whatever it takes. Morrison studied his old friend's face. Do you ever think about what the Zephyrian commander said? About chaos? Carter was quiet for a moment, watching a human medical ship dock with an alien refugee transport. Jake, they ruled through fear and destruction for 1,000 years. If preventing that creates some chaos, then we'll deal with the chaos. She turned from the window and looked at the mixed human and alien crew working together on the bridge. Besides, I don't think this is chaos. I think this is what the galaxy looks like when it's free. The Zephyrians had fired the first shot, burning humanity's greatest cities and believing they were ending another insignificant species. But they had made a crucial error. They had underestimated what happened when you threatened a species that valued freedom above survival. Humanity fired the last shot, and it echoed across the galaxy, shattering an empire and lighting the way to freedom for countless worlds. The age of the Zephyrian Dominion was over. The age of the Free Species Alliance had begun, and at the center of it all, a small blue planet called Earth continued to orbit its yellow star. Scarred but unbroken, home to the species that had refused to go quietly into the dark.